Jaya Nasingade, 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 Jaya Nasingade. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Jai Gaura Haribo, 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 Jai Gaura Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Lakshmi Narasingha Bhagavad ki jai, Bhakta Prahlad Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna! Hare Krishna! Krishna Krishna! Hare Hare! Hare Rama! Hare Rama! Rama Rama! Hare Hare! Hare Krishna! Thank you all so much for coming for the Raj Bhoga Aarti. Before you all head out, just an important announcement, a life-changing announcement. We're going to have one of the most spectacular and amazing thing happening next. So you'd all want to make sure that you stay for it, which is, can you all guess? What's going to happen next is life-changing. It can completely change your life and your consciousness. We're going to have a Bhagavad Gita class. Believe it or not, it is actually the most life-changing thing that Srila Prabhupada wanted everyone to hear from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Don't worry, Prashadam isn't running off anywhere. It doesn't have legs. It doesn't have hands. It'll be around for you all later on. But you see, the thing is, you don't just want to be someone that's just come in every week on Sundays, but you're not really absorbing yourself in the most fundamental, important thing that can completely help you to conquer your mind, which is the Bhagavad Gita. So stick around for that. And then after that, it's only an hour. And then after that, you can all go for Prashadam. And yes, you can get the blessings of Shri Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you all so much. So please stick around, and then if we could just leave a little bit space just in the middle. And so today the speaker will be Vraja Dulali Devi Dasi. She'll be giving a class on the Bhagavad Gita, so stick around for that. Hare Krishna. Yeah, please. Yeah. Those that stay get extra. Yeah. You know. For those that have stayed, thank you.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Let's try again. Hare Krishna, everyone. That's better. So, welcome to the Bhaktivedanta Manna, if this is your first time. And if you're a regular, then please listen to the class, and hopefully you can feel some inspiration to make some changes. So we'll start by singing Radha Madhav. So if you know the words, please do sing along. Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari, Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jayo Giri Bharadari, Jayo Giri Bharadari, Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jayo Jayo Giri Bharadari, Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari, So we're going to be reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 3. So Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. So I'll be reading the translation, and then after the translation will be the Sanskrit with the English, and that's where I'll need all your help to help me. Okay? Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatata siddhaya yatatam api siddhanam kaschimam veti tatvata. Manushyanam, of men. Sahasreshu, out of many thousands. Kaschit, someone. Yatati, endeavors. Siddhaya, for perfection. Yatatam, of those so endeavoring. Api, indeed. Siddhanam, of those who have achieved perfection. Kaschit, someone. Mam, me. Veti, does know. Tatvata, in fact. So, translation by His Divine Grace. Abhijana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Purport. There are various grades of men, and out of many thousands, one may be sufficiently interested in transcendental realization to try to know what is the self, what is the body, and what is the absolute truth. Generally, mankind is simply engaged in the animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first 6 chapters of the Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge, in understanding the self, the super self, and the process of realization by Gyan Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, and discrimination of the self from matter. However, Krishna can be known only by persons who are in Krishna consciousness. Other transcendentalists may achieve impersonal Brahman realization, for this is easier than understanding Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Person, but at the same time, he's beyond the knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma. The yogis and jnanis are confused in their attempts to understand Krishna. Although the greatest of the impersonalists, Sripad Sankaracharya, has admitted in his Gita commentary that Krishna is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, his followers do not accept Krishna as such, for it's very difficult to know Krishna, even though one has transcendental realization of impersonal Brahman. Krishna is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, the primeval Lord Govinda. Ishwar Paraman Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anidir Adi Govinda Sarva Karanam. It's very difficult for the non-devotees to know him. Although non-devotees declare that the path of bhakti or devotional service is very easy, they cannot practice it. If the path of bhakti is so easy as the non-devotee class of men proclaim, then why do they take up the difficult path? Actually, the path of bhakti is not easy. The so-called path of bhakti practiced by unauthorized persons without knowledge of bhakti may be easy, but when it is practiced factually, according to the rules and regulations, the speculative scholars and philosophers fall away from the path. Srila Rupa Goswami writes in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.101, Shruti Smriti Puranadhi Pancharatra Vidam Vina Ekantiki Hari Bhaktir Upatayeva Kalpate. Devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narada Pancharatra is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. It is not possible for the Brahman realized impersonalist or the Paramatma realized yogi to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the son of Mother Yashoda, or the charioteer of Arjuna. Even the great demigods are sometimes confused about Krishna. Muyati yat suraya mam tu vedana kashchana. No one knows me as I am, the Lord says. And if one does know me, then samahatma sudullapa. Such a great soul is very rare. Therefore, unless one practices devotional service to the Lord, one cannot know Krishna as he is, tattvata. Even though one is a great scholar or philosopher, only the pure devotees can know something of the inconceivable, transcendental qualities in Krishna, his being the cause of all causes, his omnipotence and opulence, and his wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, because Krishna is benevolently inclined to his devotees. He is the last word in Brahman realization, and the devotees alone can realize him as he is. Therefore, it is said, Atha Shri Krishna Namadi, Na Bhavet Graham Indriye, Sevanmukhi he Jivado, Swayam eva Spuratiyada. No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service unto him. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.2.3.4. So before we start class, we say prayers. These are in the Bhagavad Gita. It's just to honor the elders who have been passing on this message of Bhagavad Gita. So if you know, please recite, and if you don't, it's still beneficial for you to listen to this. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sakana Raghunatam Itam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karunara Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopisha Gopikanta Radhakanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvabhanu Sute Devi Pramami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarebhascha Kripa Sindhu Pevacha Patitanam Panebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, we will go through the translation again because the per part was quite big and we'll do our best to break it down. So, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So let's take this room, for example. Imagine there was like 1,000 people packed in this room, and in this room, there's only one of us who has achieved perfection. And I'm going to pick on my friend Jamie because she's my friend and I know her. So imagine if Jamie has achieved perfection for the Supreme Lord. But even though Jamie may have achieved perfection, hardly one knows Krishna in truth. And what is this perfection in life? Well, we need to try and get out this cycle of birth, death, old age, disease. Nobody wants to get old. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to have diseases. And the perfection of life is to have a connection with Bhagwan, connection with Krishna, to have a relationship, because that's only possible in the human form of life. It's not possible for animals to know Krishna. So, no, we are in a very fortunate position to have a loving relationship with God. Now, this verse is very similar to a verse which is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, if you've finished or if you've read the Bhagavad Gita and you've got to the end, then Srimad Bhagavatam is the next book that is the follow-up. The Srimad Bhagavatam is all about Krishna and it's all about his devotees. So I'm going to share a verse which is similar to this. And in this class, there will be a few Sanskrit verses and there'll be translations as well. And then I'll do my best to explain and expand. So this is Canto 6, Chapter 14, Text 5. And it says, Mukatanam api siddhanam narayan parayana srodalabha prashan atma kotish avi mahamuni. And the translation says, O great sage, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayan or Krishna. Such devotees who are fully peaceful are extremely rare. So if we compare text 3 to this text in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it ends, hardly one knows me in truth. And Bhagavatam is saying are extremely rare. Also speaks about this concept of siddhanam. Siddhanam is translating as perfection. So in reality, Krishna can only be known by persons who are practicing Krishna consciousness. And how do we find out about Krishna? Well, Krishna tells us himself how we can get to know him better. So, do you want to find out more about how we can find out more about Krishna? Yeah? Okay, brilliant. So, I'm going to talk you through some Bhagavad Gita classes. I'm going to talk you through the Bhagavad Gita text where Krishna himself is sharing with Arjuna on how we can get to know him. And this principle applies to us as well. So we can try and apply these principles. So this chapter, chapter 7, is knowledge of the Absolute. And actually, the starting of this chapter, Krishna's already telling Arjuna on how we can get to know him. So, Shri Bhagwan, Uvacha, Maye Shaktamana Partha, Yogam Yunjam Mad Ashraya, Asamsayam Samagaram Mam Yatha Gyanya Sita Charno. The translation says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how? By practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. What does this mean, in full consciousness? So basically, the Supreme Lord is telling us we need to practice yoga. But it's not the physical yoga where we do exercise and then we feel good. But there's the yoga mentally where we have to focus on the Supreme Lord. As we go through chapter 7, which we're not going to do today, and if you feel inspired to read more, you'll find there's 4 types of people that are attracted to worship Krishna. There's also 4 types of people that aren't attracted to worshipping Krishna. And I feel it's quite sad, those people who will never get to know Krishna in this lifetime. We are all spirit souls. We're known as jivas, atma. And there's different types of yogas that exist. And in this class, I'm going to try and explain some of the yoga that you can partake in. But ultimately, the different types of yogas, they're all stepping stones to the ultimate yoga, which is bhakti yoga. But it's saying, practice yoga in full consciousness of me. Now, the purport of 7.3 spoke about impersonalists, but they're partial because they know about Brahma Jyoti, they know about Paramatma partially. And how do we focus? How can we concentrate on Krishna? Because the mind's quite fickle. If you ever notice if you're doing something, your mind gets distracted, you'll do something else, and then you forget doing what you were doing in the first place. So how can we focus our mind on Krishna? Well, there's processes of devotional service, and there's 9 different processes that can help us towards remembering Krishna. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam, these are just some of the process. Shravanam means to listen. This is the most and foremost important quality we can all work on, listening. Because as you hear more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam or from the pure devotees, that's when we start to get fixed in service. That's when we start to get attached to Krishna. Krishna dwells in everyone's heart. And as the class goes on, I'm going to share with you Bhagavad Gita shlokas which talk about that. Krishna's in everyone's heart, he's purifying the devotee, acts as a well-wishing friend. We can't ask for a better friend in life. Now, what else is Krishna saying to us? Well, let's explore a little bit more. So, we are now going to go towards chapter 11, text 54. Chapter 11 is known as a universal form. This is where Krishna reveals himself to Arjuna in his magnanimous form. So many heads, so many legs, so many arms. And let's see what he's saying to Arjuna here. Bhaktyata vananyaya shakya ahameva vidu Arjuna gyantam drishtu cha tatvena praveshtum cha parantapa. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way you can enter into the mysteries of my understanding. Now, what's the key word this translation has just said? Undivided devotional service. Now, if we have a mandir set up at our home, if we offer agarbatti or incense stick, diya, you need to do that with undivided attention. Like if there's a pujari there serving Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman or Radha Gokulananda, and he happens to bring his phone, and his phone pings a message or starts ringing, and it's like, oh, that's more important, let me just drop it. That's the same when we worship God. It has to be undivided. That's your time with the Lord. Why bring anybody else into it? So keep it aside. Undivided devotional service. And we can meditate on the form of Krishna that we love the most. And it's said in the Bhagavad Gita that devotees love the form of Krishna in his two arms, with the flute in his hand, with the long garland, with the yellow garments. Whichever comes to mind, you meditate on that form. For me, as I was growing up, I was always exposed to Laddu Gopal. So when I think of Krishna, I think of baby Krishna. So here's that word again, devotional service. But wait, there's more. So we're going to move on to chapter 18, 18.55. The last chapter of Bhagavad Gita basically summarizes everything that Krishna has been speaking to with Arjuna. And Krishna's happy to even say, ask Arjuna, was there anything you didn't understand? I'm happy to repeat it again. So let's see what Krishna is saying to Arjuna in this chapter. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanya chashmi tatvata tato mam tatvoto gyantva vishate tad anantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. There's that magic word again, devotional service. I'm just going to read this first purport because I think it's quite powerful, so you can have a bit of an understanding of what this verse is about. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and his plenary portions cannot be understood by mental speculation, nor by non-devotees. If anyone wants to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has to take to pure devotional service under the guidance of a pure devotee. Otherwise, the truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will always be hidden. As already stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.25, Naham prakasha sarvasya. He is not revealed to everyone. No one can understand God simply by erudite scholarship or mental speculation. Only one who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service can understand what Krishna is. University degrees are not helpful. So, Krishna can't be understood by mental speculation. Degrees aren't important. You have to engage yourself in Krishna consciousness. Whatever our background is, that's absolutely irrelevant. And I've got a really nice story to share with you, which will illustrate this point. So, when Krishna was little, he used to love playing outside. Do you like playing outside? It's fun, isn't it? So Krishna too was playing outside. He was with his friends. Now when you play outside, you're going to get hungry as well, right? Because you burn energy. So he was playing outside and friends like, Krishna, I'm hungry. Krishna, okay, sure. Go to those brahmanas over there and ask them for some prasadam. So his friends went there, told them, we know Krishna, we're Krishna's friend, we're hungry, please feed us. And the brahmanas were doing yajna at that point, and they're like, no, go, we're busy, we can't give you food. And then they came back, they were very disappointed, of course, because they went and wanted food. And then Krishna said, okay, go and speak to those brahmanas' wife, I'm sure they will give you some prasadam. Now the brahmana's wife, as soon as they heard that Krishna wanted prasadam, they dropped everything, all the offerings that were there prepared for the yajna, they came straight to Krishna. This is an example of how they had served Krishna, they loved Krishna, they dropped everything they were a bit fearful, actually, going back home after giving all the offerings. But actually, the Brahmanas welcomed their wives back because they understood, they know what is devotional service. What's the point of doing yajna if you don't even know what the ultimate goal is? So that is an example of devotional service. I'm going to just give you another example as well, what the purport of this verse says. For instance, a green bird enters a green tree, not to become one with the tree, but to enjoy the fruits of the tree. Impersonalists generally give the example of a river flowing into the ocean and merging. This may be a source of happiness for the impersonalist, but the personalist keeps his personal individuality like an aquatic in the ocean. So the green bird and the green tree, they're both separate. So that's the kind of relationship we want to have with Bhagwan. You are a living entity. Krishna's Bhagwan. We're two people exchanging love between each other. And it should be with love. When a mom has a small child, cries in the morning or evening or whenever the child is crying, the mother's always going to give it milk. You know, it's not going to complain, oh, why did you wake me up? The child needs to be fed. So in that relationship that we have with Krishna, it needs to be a personal relationship. Yeah? We're an identity, their identity, an exchange of love. What the kind of relationship we don't want to have with God is like a business transaction. Oh, Bhagwan, I do this, please give me good exam results. Oh, Bhagwan, I do this, please give me a good wife or a good husband. Oh, Bhagwan, you know, because then if I do this, you do this. If you do this, it should be based on love, just like a mother's love for the child is love, yeah? That's the closest thing love is compared to. So there are three key examples. And notice the theme running through all of these three verses. Devotional service, undivided devotional service, pure. It's the same messages coming up again and again and again. So Lord Krishna, effectively, can only be known by Ananya Bhakti, pure devotional service. Krishna is beyond Brahman and Paramatma realization, the goal of respectively the Jnanis and the Yogis. And if you think this information is powerful, what Krishna has already shared, well, guess what? There's more. It's bigger and it's better. Because at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna presents more information. That's why chapter 18 is one of the biggest chapters we have after chapter 2. I'm going to share another verse with you. 18.54. This is confidential knowledge which is being shared here. We're going to find out more about confidential knowledge, and then we're going to find out most confidential knowledge. So we'll start from the start. Confidential knowledge. This is the goal of the Jnanis for liberation or Brahman realization. Brahma bhuta pasanatma na sochati na kangsati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service to me. So that's the confidential knowledge. There's more confidential knowledge coming up, which the Lord is going to share. Let's explore this. 18.61. It says, Ishvara sarva bhutanam riddeshya arjun tishtati paramayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjun, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. So here is where we are hearing about Supersoul, also known as Paramatma. Also, another nice name is Antaryami. So he is directing all of us. Every single person in this room, we are being directed by the Supreme Lord. He's witnessing all of the activities we are doing, and we are always under the Lord's control. And ultimately, our goal is to surrender to the Supreme Lord. If you reflect on yourself, if you reflect on your life, if you think about circumstances, situation, events which have happened, and you thought, I'm in control, or you wanted a certain outcome, but actually the opposite happened, how did you feel? Like you wanted to control that situation, but unfortunately, you were not in control. And perhaps months down the line, you may realize, actually, that was a good thing that didn't happen. Krishna did good here. That wasn't meant for me. That wasn't meant to be the plan. This is meant to be the plan. But also the concept of surrender. Hands up if you find difficulty to actually surrender to Bhagavan, to trust that his plans are for us, is right. You don't need to put your hand up if you don't feel you want to share that. But it is a difficult concept that you're not in control. You're trusting somebody that's going to take charge of your life, and ultimately is the best thing for us. Because sometimes what we want for ourselves, it could be the most harmful thing. So he's residing. So never ever feel like you're by yourself, because your super soul is always present. This links in quite well with another verse, which is in chapter 6, verse 7. I'm going to find it and I'm going to share it with you. Chapter 6 is known as Dayan Yoga. Chapter 7 says, Jitatma prashantasye paramatma samhita shishtona sukha dukkeshu tatamana pamanayo. It says, for one who has conquered the mind, the super soul's already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. Here's that same concept coming again. Control the mind. Abide to what the Supreme Lord wants for us. He is giving us superior dictation, and we should do our best to follow what he wants for us in our life. So we've shared what is confidential knowledge. We've shared even more confidential knowledge. But actually, there's more confidential knowledge. The best is yet to come. So don't even think about leaving now. You've got to stay. So the most confidential knowledge is covered also in chapter 18. Chapter 18 speaks about bhakti yoga. Mentioned about there's stepping stones towards yoga, different types of yoga, but the best yoga one wants to follow is bhakti yoga. If you need a bit of convincing, then let's see what these verses share and hold. So 18.65 to 18.69 covers all about bhakti yoga. I'm not going to go through it all, but I'm definitely going to share key verses with you. And some stories if it fits in nicely. These shlokas are very, very famous. And definitely, if you have time, have a look at this or read it. 18.65 says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namashkuru mameva shyasi satyam te patijana priya assi me. And what is Krishna saying here? Always think of me. Become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Did you notice, did you count how many times Krishna said me? If not, let's look at it. Let's count all together. So always think of me. That was one, wasn't it? Well done. Become my devotee. 2. Worship me. Offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. How many times did he say? 5. Brilliant. You're good at maths. Thank you. They were checking us. I got it right. So yeah, we are precious to Krishna. And this knowledge we can share and apply to our life. Why? Because Arjun was Krishna's very dear friend. I've got a really nice story I want to share here in this relation. You may or may not know this story, but it's about a cobbler and a brahmana. So one day Narada Muni, he carries a veena. He can go anywhere he wants to in the universe. He's going, Narayan, Narayan. And one day he comes across a cobbler. And the cobbler asks him, oh, Narada Muni, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to see my Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha. I was like, oh, okay. Whilst you're going there, do you think you could ask him a question for me? Sure. What's your question? Can you ask Lord Narayan when it's my turn to go back to Godhead? Sure. Narada Muni carries on going. He sees a brahmana. Brahmana goes, Narada Muni, how are you? Where are you going? What are you doing? He's like, I'm going to see Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha. Oh, could you ask him a question? Sure. Can you ask Lord Narayan when it's my turn to return back to Godhead? Sure. Narada Muni goes to Vaikuntha, sees Lord Narayan, shares these stories, and also was shocked by what Lord Narayan said about these. And then he thought he'd put it to practice. So on the way back, he saw the Brahmana. Brahmana's like, did you see Lord Narayan? Yes. So when's my turn? Well, before I share it, let me just tell you what Lord Narayan was doing in Vaikuntha. Lord Narayan was threading an elephant through the needle of the eye. You know, the eye of the needle. He was threading an elephant. You know what the Brahmana's response was? Impossible. He found out that actually it was quite a while before his time was to go back to Godhead. This is a Brahmana, yeah? Runs into the cobbler. Cobbler's like, oh, how is my Lord Narayan? What was my Lord Narayan doing when he was in Vaikuntha? Oh, Lord Narayan, he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. Wow, that's what my Lord was doing? Amazing. So you see, he went back to Godhead in that lifetime. So that outward dress is not important. It's what's happening inside here, your relationship with God. So, thus you will come to me without fail. 18.66 is also very powerful as well. It says, Sarva dharman parayajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tam sarve papebhyo mokshyami masucha. And what is Krishna saying here? Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Remember how we were talking about surrender earlier and how do we want to surrender to God? It's actually quite hard, this concept of surrender. But just surrender, Krishna says. Do not fear, is what he's saying. We need to mold our life in such a way we can always think of Krishna 24 hours a day. From the moment we rise to the moment we take rest. Whether it's through listening to kirtans or lectures, whether it's through what we're reading, whether it's through our association, whether it's through the pictures we hang in our homes. These are all ways we can think about Krishna. Our material life doesn't need to be separate from Krishna. Bring them together, can be molded together. Have that faith, have that love, try to surrender that little bit more with each passing day. I'm not going to go through the rest, but I'll just kind of summarize what 18.67, 69, and 71 talks about. Now, this knowledge, remember, this is confidential knowledge. This knowledge can't be shared with everyone. And Krishna is saying this knowledge is not to be explained to those who are not austere, devoted, engaged in devotional service, or who is envious of me. When Krishna was on earth as a human being, not everybody knew he was God. Only a small number of people knew. You had the Pandavas who knew who Krishna was. he had Queen Kunti, he had Draupadi, he had Bhishma Dev, he had Vidur. But there were also people that were envious of him. Duryodhana was one person who was envious. His cousin Shishupal was envious. But we need to have the kind of loving relationship with Krishna. And then 18.68, 18.69 talks about that person who preaches about Krishna, that servant so dear. There's no one more dear than him. And those who share this secret to those who are going to be receiving this knowledge, they are guaranteed to come back to Krishna at the end. Okay. But there's another crux. The path of Bhakti Yoga is not easy. But anything's possible if you work at it. If you're going to follow this path of bhakti, there's rules and regulations that need to be followed. And I'm going to share with you. Because sometimes we hear about, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, but you don't understand why you're doing it. You're doing it because your mother told you to do it, but they don't know what the answer is. So let's explore. So there's 4 regulative principles we follow. There's no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, fish and eggs, and no gambling. If we look at the first one, if a couple are married, then certainly they come together to bring God-conscious souls into this world. No illicit talks about this act outside of marriage. And why do we follow this principle? So we can follow the principles of austerity. Second one, no intoxication. That talks about alcohol, talks about drugs. Because this impeds our thinking, it impends our clouding. We're not going to think clearly. Have you ever been in a situation where you've been with family, a birthday party, where you've seen people act differently because they've taken in these intoxications? And then there's reactions the next day. They might feel sick, they might regretted how they behaved, might regretted what they said. But you can't take it back, it's already done. So we follow this no intoxication because then we can follow the principle of cleanliness. No meat eating, fish and eggs. So every soul deserves the right to live in this world. That extends to animals as well. Krishna tells us what we can offer to him in love and devotion. I'm going to find it for you. 9.26 says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhakti prayachati tad aham bhakti uparatam ashnami praya atmana. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. There's no mention of meat, fish, eggs, alcohol, anything like that. And all of these items you can find anywhere in the world, no matter what your status is in life. Again, love, devotion. You could turn around and say, well, actually, you're committing violence even having vegetables. Yes, but actually pulling a carrot from the ground in comparison to killing an animal, they're very different. And as Krishna Bhaktas, what we do is we offer all of everything we cook to Bhagavan, and it reduces the karmic reaction. So it's beneficial for everybody. No gambling. Trying to get something for nothing. Labor, do your work, do it honestly. Whatever's meant to come your way will come, thanks to Krishna's grace. Because gambling is addictive behavior. It leads to cheating, and it destroys truthfulness. So austerity, cleanliness, mercy, truthfulness, there are 4 pillars to dharma. So we should follow them. In the story of the Mahabharata, when King Yudhishthira gets invited for the gambling match because the king has told him. His wife warned him, this is not a good idea. But he went. And what happened? He lost everything, even his reputation. He's meant to be known as Dharmraj, someone who promotes righteousness. And this is one of the effects of what happens when you get pulled in. You don't want to stop, oh, just a little bit more, just a little bit more. These are the reasons why we follow these 4 regulative principles. We want to try to live in the mode of goodness. Take up the lifestyle of a devotee as best as you can. Do what you like, build it up slowly. You don't need to change your life overnight. Yeah, everything takes time. So there's different lifestyles according to if you live in the mandir or whether you live outside of the mandir, but they're similar. If you're a brahmachari who have dedicated your life to living here, then typically your day will start about 4 o'clock in the morning. A lot of us might be in bed by then. Start the day, do the morning program, study the Vedic literatures, have breakfast. They're not just sitting idly, they're getting involved. They might be distributing books, there might be deity worship going on, there might be maintaining the mandir, cleaning, cooking, agricultural work, who knows? Lots of. And when you have a big property, big grounds, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. In the evening, they'll have their dinner, light evening, and then they're in bed by 9, 10 o'clock the latest. And what about for those who don't live in the mandir? What about those in householder life? Or if you live by yourself, for example? Well, we have to maintain the house. We have to go to work, right? Otherwise, there's going to be no house. We chant, we worship. We also study the Vedic literatures. We may have Sangha groups where we come together with like-minded people, have prasadam. We may go to the temple on Sunday. We've got a bit more time. There's festivals, constantly there's festivals. Get involved, do service. Yeah. And also, following this path, there are going to be austerities, there are going to be penances, and there are going to be sacrifices. Ekadashi is a fast that happens every 2 weeks where we refrain from eating any grains. Yes, it's uncomfortable doing fasting. Yes, it's hard. But it's going to help us to advance in spiritual life. Athletes, for example, who perform on world stage, imagine how regimented they are with their schedule. They're getting up at whatever time, training for how many hours, eating whatever food, and then training again maybe. Very regimented, especially if you want to become a world-class athlete. Same principle applies if you're studying to go to university, to whatever degree you want to do. So we have to follow a strict sadhana. Chanting, deity worship, reading Bhagavatam, only taking prasadam, attending arti. We speak about only taking prasadam. The reason why we emphasize this is you may see food as just eating food, but effectively you're eating the energy of the person who's cooked that food. That's why it's called prasadam. So in essence, in conclusion, almost there. Thank you for sticking with me so far. Unless one practices devotional service, one cannot know Krishna, as Krishna reveals himself only to his devotees. Again, this reference is also in Bhagavad Gita. Notice how every point Krishna is saying is always backed up again and again. 10.10 says, Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam tadami bhuti yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So here, the purpose is saying, associate with pure devotees. Find a guru in life. Take guidance from them, how you can get to know Krishna better. And 10.11 speaks about how, actually I'll continue just the last sentence of 10.10. It says, if a devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress on the path of self-realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain him. So Lord Krishna is only going to reveal himself to those who are dedicated and devoted to him. And the practice of devotional service produces realized transcendental knowledge. If we go back to 7.3, is where we started, the last line of this purport says, no one can understand Krishna as he is by his blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service. Also speaks about how Krishna is full in himself. He is the most wealthiest, he is the most famous, he has the most strength, beauty, knowledge, renunciation. Effectively, he doesn't need anything from us, but he's engaging us in his service. I have just one last point I would like to make. So at the beginning I said, what's the perfection of life? Get out this cycle of birth, death, old age, disease. When's the best time to start it? Start it now. In fact, start it when you're young. Because sometimes when you talk to people, they're like, no, sorry, I'm busy with my children. I haven't got time to worship. No, sorry, my children are getting married. I haven't got time. Sorry, I'm busy with my grandchildren. I need to help. I'm going to leave you with a quote which Prahlad Maharaj advised for his classmates. How old are you? 7. How old are you? 6. You? How old are you? 5. Okay, so this little girl over here, she's 5. So similar to Prahlad Maharaj. And this is what Prahlad Maharaj had to say to his friends. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 7. My dear friends, O son of the demons, you cannot please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by becoming perfect brahmanas, demigods or great saints, or by becoming perfectly good in etiquette or vast learnings. None of these qualifications can awaken the pleasure of the Lord. Nor by charity, austerity, sacrifice, cleanliness of vows can one satisfy the Lord. The Lord is pleased only if one has unflinching, unalloyed devotion to him. Without sincere devotional service, everything is simply a show. So ultimately, Prahlad Maharaj is saying, whatever service you do with devotion, that's what's going to please the Lord. So that concludes the class. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for staying. If you've got any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And I hope you can take 1 or 2 or 3 learnings away from today. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Silly.